I have a recipe for you that I like to call a one-pot wonder. It's a paella dish. I know you've all tried it before in restaurants. It's actually really easy to make at home as well. Now, it's a beautiful rice dish that involves saffron and then basically whatever ingredients you like. Classically done with chicken and rabbit if it's from inland Spain. If it's closer to the coast, you get mussels and bits of fish and lobster and all that good stuff in it. I'm going to show you one with chorizo, chicken, some beautiful capsicum and onions and tomatoes. Really, really tasty and really delicious. This is how you make it. We're going to start off with some saffron. You don't need to use a lot. I know it's quite expensive. So I've brought a pot of water up to the boil. You turn that off and then you're going to drop your saffron into that water. I'm just going to use a little pinch and we're going to draw a lot of flavour and colour out of the saffron from putting it into that hot water. All right, so we're going to leave that in for a minute. Into a hot pan. Now, I've got one of these fancy paella pans, which are actually pretty cheap, but if you don't have one at home, you can use something like cast iron. It just will take a bit longer to heat up, right? Paella pans are usually pretty thin, but this is obviously much thicker. But you'll be able to do the same job with. Now, onto the chicken. I've got a couple of legs and a couple of wings. I'm putting a little bit of salt and a quick crack of pepper. We're going to bring this over and pop it straight into our pan. Now, I'm using legs and wings because they have the bones, they have the skin still on. If you wanted to use breast meat, you could, but this is going to cook a little bit longer and it's going to be much more flavoursome. So you put your chicken in and you basically leave it for 5 minutes or so, turning it, getting it nice and brown. Then we're going to take it back out and then we're going to start loading it back up with other ingredients. Let me show you what they are. We start off with a chorizo. So I'm probably just going to use half the sausage. This is the classic Spanish sausage that, you know, it's a little bit spicy, but it's got that delicious smoky kind of flavour to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that directly across. Beautiful. So as much as you like to eat the sausage in the dish, you also use the fat that comes out of the sausage to flavour it. Half an onion. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dice the onion. So keep your eye on your chicken to make sure you don't burn it. So we've got our onions cut. We need some garlic. You want quite a bit of garlic, so I'm going to go for 3 cloves. Okay. So we're just going to chop the garlic pretty rough. You don't have to cut it too fine. Come back and have another look at the chicken. Looking good. The next thing you're going to do is get your capsicum. Top and bottom off. Just like that. Just put your knife down the side there and then it should just open up, remove the seeds, and then you can go through and clean up the inside. So I'm just going to go and cut my capsicum here into lengths that kind of match and then just go ahead and slice that up. Lovely. Right, so once your chicken's nicely browned, you just want to get a good colour on all sides, okay? Remove it from the pan. Now remember, the chicken's going to go back in about 15 minutes or so. And then we add our next ingredient, which is the chorizo. Now the chorizo is that delicious Spanish-style sausage, which when you throw it into the pan, you're going to see quite a bit of fat come out, which is great because we're going to use that fat to cook the onions and the rice and all the other ingredients. So there's a couple of ways to do paella. One way is you cook it all in this pan and you cook it from start to finish out here. It's actually the authentic way to cook it, but I think it's a little bit trickier for people when they're cooking it at home. So we're going to cheat. We're going to get it all going, and then we're going to stick it in the oven, and it'll cook just beautifully. You just wait and see. So what we're starting to see now is some of this fat starting to melt out of the sausage, and we've got this beautiful, rich paprika-stained kind of fat in the pan, which is just what we want. So next, we're going to grab some of our onion, which we've diced up, and add that. Give that a stir around. Once your onions had a minute or two and started to soften up, the next ingredient we go for is our garlic. Capsicum. And we're going to sweat those down for just a minute as well. Nice high heat. We're getting very close to putting the rice in. Before we do that, I'm going to cut my tomato. Next, we put in the rice. So I'm using the medium grain rice. The thing you want to stay away from is the long grain rice, okay? Perfect rice for a paella should be short and fat. So medium, there you go. In it goes. Give that a stir around with my paprika. So you're covering each grain of rice in some of that fat that came out of the chorizo and some of the oil that we used to cook the chicken in. If it needs a little bit more oil, you can go ahead and just drizzle it in. Not much, just a little bit. Once you've given it a good stir together, you'll see that the little grains of rice are going ever so slightly opaque. That's exactly what you want to happen. And once you see that and it's getting a little bit sticky, it's time to add your liquid. So grab the 4 cups of water that you've combined with the saffron. Pour it in. You'll hear there's quite a bit of residual heat in there, okay, which is good. Just continue to give that a stir around when you pour it in, and pour it in saffron and all. And at this point, we're going to season it with just a little bit of salt, a little bit more black pepper, and then we're going to scoop up the tomatoes that we've diced, and we're going to sprinkle those over the top of the dish. And then it's time to put the chicken back in and throw it in the oven. Nestle them down in and amongst the rice. So of course, as this cooks, all that beautiful flavour from the bones of the chicken is going to be leached into the paella, which is going to taste just divine. I don't like it to look too perfect. I like it to kind of look a little bit messy. You want to preset the oven to 200 degrees, so nice warm oven. And it's going to take about half an hour. The whole pan goes in. Beautiful. Now, one of those real telltale signs that you've done a good paella is when the outside of it goes nice and crispy, that crispy rice. So what I'm going to do is finish it off by just garnishing it with a spring onion, handful of spring onions, and I like to kind of dig right in. Oh, you get that beautiful fluffy rice on the bottom and that crunchy, crispy rice on top. A little bit of chicken. It's really a special dish. Let's see how it tastes. Still hot. So good.